Would it be possible to take steroids and get away with it? It would be almost impossible to catch someone like this using PEDs. There's no difference. So there's been a number of high-profile cases of cheating at the Olympics and in general sports recently. Most recently comes from the sport of tennis, where Jannik Sinner, world number 1, was found with traces of clostebol, a testosterone-derived anabolic steroid, in his blood. His official story is that some cream containing the drug was rubbed into his skin and it somehow found its way into a cut and therefore showed up on the blood test. But knowing the pharmacokinetics of anabolic steroids, we don't know if he was actually doping or whether his legitimate story is to be believed. But it's brought up something I did a video on a while back, and now I want to go into the topic again, and it's brought up an idea about 2 questions. Is it possible to get away with doping if you understand anabolic steroid pharmacokinetics? And secondly, how easy would this be to do if you were, say, an Olympic athlete? So in this video, I'm going to discuss how you'd actually get away with it if you were going to, and how scarily easy it is to get away with it. And this may be controversial, but I do believe that a majority of Olympic athletes are doping or have doped and have used drugs, in particular anabolic steroids, at some point in their life. It's just the ones that are able to get away with it. But first we need to understand the usual process of a drug test. So you're an Olympic athlete, what is actually happening? So 2 samples are usually taken across either urine or blood, or sometimes both. You're usually notified within minutes out of competition or just after competition. These 2 samples are taken, A and B, and testing is done on the A sample and B if necessary, or if things come up that WADA see as suspicious or see as red flags that need further testing. Now, considering this video is just about anabolic steroids, I'm going to stay on topic and I'm really going to focus on that question. Would it be possible to take steroids and get away with it? Well, if you actually look at the WADA criteria, once that sample is analyzed and you look at the criteria of what constitutes a red flag or a suspicious drug test, it is if any of the following criteria are met. And that is that the sample has a T to E ratio, a testosterone to epitestosterone ratio greater than 4.0, an AT ratio of less than 20, a 5 alpha to 5 beta ratio greater than 2.4, if concentrations of testosterone are greater than 200 nanograms per mil, or a variety of other hormones, as you can see in the list here, of greater than a certain threshold that WADA has set. But what is interesting is that the main one that WADA is using is that T to E ratio of being greater than 4.0 as being a red flag. Now, the T to E ratio is basically what WADA is using to detect synthetic androgens or synthetic anabolic usage. And in most cases, the epitestosterone level in the blood stays relatively stable no matter how much testosterone you inject. So if you do inject synthetic testosterone, say you take 300 milligrams of test, your serum testosterone concentration is going to be very, very high compared to the E ratio, and you'll probably likely be over the 4.0 cutoff, and that is going to be a red flag for WADA to look into further testing of your blood or your urine and determine whether you are drug cheating. Like I said, if you take 300 milligrams of testosterone, the ratio might go from something like 1:1, which it usually is in most athletes, to something like 5:1, and that is what is going to get you caught. But we know people have been cheating at the Olympics for a long time, so how are they actually getting away with it, and could you get away with it if you wanted to? So the T to E ratio, as being the main one that WADA is using, it's pretty easy to get around. So if you inject testosterone, your ratio is going to go up, right? But if you inject testosterone and epitestosterone in the same ratio, you could pretty much keep that ratio pretty close to 1:1. Now, it's just a ratio, and the concentration cutoff for WADA is 200 nanograms per mil of testosterone, which is 20,000 nanograms per deciliter. So it would take a lot of testosterone, I'm talking grams of testosterone or grams of anabolic steroids, to exceed 20,000 nanograms per deciliter. What I'm saying is it would be possible for an athlete to inject themselves with testosterone and also inject themselves with epitestosterone in similar ratios and keep that ratio under that 4.0. In fact, in the research, co-administration of testosterone and epitestosterone in a ratio of 30:1 has been shown to keep that TE ratio basically 1:1 and basically normal. So any sophisticated country-led doping program could easily have the athletes take epitestosterone in conjunction with anabolic steroids to keep the ratio 1:1, allowing them to have supraphysiological massive amounts of testosterone in their system whilst the ratio in their blood and their urine look normal on paper. But WADA isn't stupid. They've obviously realized people do this, and they've developed further methods in order to distinguish exactly what is going on in someone's blood. Now, testosterone itself naturally has 19 carbons. However, carbon in the world naturally can occur as carbon carbon 12, carbon 13, or carbon 14, and the ratio of C13 and C12 can vary and does vary due to the difference between synthetically created testosterone and naturally created testosterone. Natural testosterone has a certain isotope ratio. Synthetic testosterone, because it's derived often from plant steroids, has a slightly different isotope concentration to endogenous testosterone. And by comparing the 13 carbon to 12 carbon ratio in an athlete's urine, WADA can detect if the testosterone is of synthetic origin. So if you have heaps of molecules of testosterone that have a different ratio to what you would expect from endogenous testosterone, it's pretty indicative that the athlete is getting that testosterone from a synthetic source, pretty much taking gear. So regardless of the TE ratio, WADA can detect if that athlete is cheating, doping, taking anabolic steroids. And this is the strategy they used to get Floyd Landis at the 2006 Tour de France, and why he was done despite having a normal ratio, why he was done for doping and for cheating. In addition to this, WADA's also developed ways to detect esters. So naturally produced testosterone, endogenous testosterone, has no ester attached. It's just released in a pulsatile fashion from the testes. But synthetic testosterone obviously has a much longer half-life, so you don't have to inject yourself every single 3-4 hours. Testosterone cypionate, testosterone enanthate, testosterone propionate, all of these are esters that are attached, and WADA can pick up whether those esters are in the blood. So there'd be no reason why a natural athlete has something like a cypionate ester floating around in the blood unless they were using anabolic steroids exogenously. However, the biggest part of this video and how they get away with it is that they're using what is called designer steroids. And the strategy is that by using unknown substances or substances with unknown metabolites, WADA won't be able to detect anything abnormal. If WADA can't even test for it, they can just cheat. They don't know the chemical structure. They don't even know the steroid exists. How can they test for it? How would they know? For example, chemists can create designer steroids that closely mimic endogenous testosterone. The analytical results of 30 batches of testosterone products seized on the black market in Austria revealed that half of them hold 13 carbon values within the range reported for naturally produced T, meaning that there are designer steroids that look exactly like endogenous testosterone, and there is no chemical difference or no ability to test any differences between synthetically produced designer steroid testosterone and endogenous produced testosterone, meaning that you could have a weightlifter taking a designer steroid that looks exactly like endogenous testosterone, and WADA, even though their testosterone level is, might be at 2,000, 3,000 nanograms per deciliter, WADA's not going to know because there is literally no difference in the chemical structure. It would be almost impossible to catch someone like this using PEDs. There's no difference. In addition to this, using the designer steroids in conjunction with epitestosterone could give a completely normal ratio of 1-to-1 despite that athlete having supraphysiological levels of testosterone year round. And WADA wouldn't know because the ratio would not be above 4.0, and isotope testing would show that the molecule is just the same as natural testosterone, and this athlete would be decimating the natural competition. Not only this, but there are various other masking agents and diuretics that can mask usage. For example, finasteride blocks testosterone to DHT conversion and can help mask the use of nandrolone, NPP, and diuretics can increase the urine volume and dilute the concentrations of any illegal substances in the urine. So you can really start to see how easy it is to cheat and how easy it is to get away with cheating at the Olympics. This is not to mention the last aspect of this is you can get a TUE therapeutic use exemption for the use of testosterone. It is so easy to falsely lower your testosterone levels to get a TUE. If you sleep 1 hour the night before and eat badly and do a massive workout and crush your testosterone naturally, you're probably going to be down at like 100, 150 nanograms per deciliter. And if you get an exemption for testosterone, if you look at the WADA site and the documentation surrounding therapeutic use exemptions for TRT, the athlete does undergo doping tests like all other athletes, but a positive result for T, like a high TE ratio, is reported as normal and there's no violation. So there's essentially no way to sanction an athlete using TRT who then might want to use more testosterone. If you're prescribed 100 milligrams a week as an athlete and you take 250 milligrams a week, WADA is not really going to test for that and they're not really going to care that much. So these athletes could get a TUE and easily push the dose 300, 400, 500 milligrams a week and get massive strength and power gains that completely decimates any natural competition that they might have. So to conclude this video, is it possible to drug cheat at the Olympics? Yes, it is. And there are ways that people are cheating at the Olympics easily and getting away with it through the use of designer steroids, manipulating endogenous versus exogenous forms of testosterone, using masking agents, using therapeutic use exemptions, administering the epitestosterone to keep the ratio below 4-to-1, and manipulating pharmacokinetics like using tests with no ester. It is absolutely absolutely possible to get away and evade WADA's drug protocol testing. And it would be even more possible to be taking a super physiological amount of testosterone whilst on paper looking clean. Do I think that there are athletes that are natural and clean? Obviously I do. But I would say that almost all Olympic weightlifters are on some form of anabolics or have been in the past. And unfortunately, gold medals are king and are the ultimate prize to some of these countries. If they're going to do anything they can to reach those gold medals, you have to assume that part of it also is going to be cheating and country-sponsored cheating. And of course, WADA and their drug testing will continue to improve and they'll get new methodologies. But in this video, there are many loopholes, as I've shown, to get around the testing already, to cheat. And it's just going to be a constant fight of cheating versus catching up versus cheating versus catching up. But at the moment, you could get away with cheating if you understood the pharmacokinetics, understood the biology, and were smart about how you did it. I would say there's many athletes out there, even at the most recent Paris Olympics, that are cheating and have gotten away with it. And maybe that's just the unfortunate reality that it's never going to be an even playing field, because a country with better access to money, doctors, testing, chemists may always outweigh a country that doesn't have access to those things. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you in the next video.